Okay, we're live. Meeting is yours, Mr. Supervisor.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to thank all of you for attending our regular board meeting of June 15th, 2021. This meeting will be held electronically as authorized under the Open Meetings Act, Public Act 267 as of 1967 as amended. Members of the public body and members of the public may participate electronically as identified on our website and posted throughout our township. That being said, I would like to call a meeting to order, as I said, and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, board members. Roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Supervisor Kowa,
Here.
Clerk Noble here.
White Lake Township.
Clerk Noble here, White Lake Township. Treasurer Roman,
Mr. Roman will not be with us this evening. He had a family incident of which he has to deal with, unfortunately.
Trustee Ruggles,
Here.
Trustee Smith,
Here, White Lake Township.
Trustee Voorhees,
Yes, present, White Lake Township.
Trustee Powell,
Here, White Lake Township.
Good.
That everyone, sorry, White Lake Township, I apologize.
That's all right, Scott. He wasn't macking an eye on. Okay. So, I am looking to make a couple of amendments to the agenda. The first amendment will be to move the tribute to Mr. Ron Voorhees to just before the trustee comments in an effort to provide Pam and her group a little more time. They have another commitment. And the other item that we will be moving is we'll be removing 9A, the annual treasurer's report, because Mr. Roman is not here to address the crowd. And we will also be removing 9D because again, Mr. Roman is not here to address. I am looking for a motion to approve the amended agenda.
So moved, Mr. Supervisor.
I have support.
Support.
I have support from Trustee Smith. Roll call vote, please, Mr. Noble.
Supervisor Kowa,
Yes.
Clerk Noble, yes. Trustee Ruggles,
Yes.
Trustee Smith,
Yes.
Trustee Voorhees,
Yes,
Trustee Powell.
Yes.
Item number 5, public comment. At this time, if anyone out there has anything to say that is either on or off the agenda, you'll have 3 minutes to do so, and you'll have to identify yourself for the recorder. Brian, are there any hands out there?
We have a caller. Caller, if you'd like to make a comment, press *9 to raise your hand, and then we will call on you. Okay, hand is raised. Press *6 on your keypad to unmute yourself. Then say your name and address for the record. Again, 6193. There you go. Go ahead and say your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, my name is Jim Cush. I'm at 410 Berry Patch Lane in White Lake Township.
Okay, Jim, go ahead.
Okay, I'm president of Twin Lakes Village Association. It's a homeowners association here in White Lake. And I'm just on here today. I just want to thank a couple of people. We had a road project that went on here recently that we just finished up about 2 weeks ago. And I'd like to actually thank each of you, the White Lake Township trustees, for their participation in this. Also, special thank you for Mike Roman and his staff. They've done an excellent job helping us with it, as well as Janine Smith and the rest of the assessing department. Also like to thank Allied Construction. They were the ones who did the actual work on the roads, and they've come out beautiful, especially Kevin Schell and Gary Sullivan from that company. And the general contractor who oversaw the whole thing and reported to White Lake, G2 Consulting Group, especially Jason Stoops. The one comment I'd like to make regarding that is, each of you trustees have a very important responsibility to the White Lake community. And in working with you, I see that none of you take that responsibility lightly. This project could have never happened without your help and support. And I realized that this was a very unique and new venture to the trustees, and that it was a private road project. In fact, I believe this may have been a first ever situation in which a township has worked to help finance a private road project. And with the success of this joint effort, it's in my opinion, you should seriously consider these types of private projects in the future. Not only did it make an enormous difference to our subdivision community, allowing us to have decent roads, protecting our property values, improve the overall aesthetics of our neighborhood, but the township, I think, also, and rightly so, profited financially from its involvement too. So, and that benefits all the residents of White Lake. So I just, once again, just want to thank you on behalf of all the residents here in Twin Lake subdivision. Really thank you for your support and commitment, and keep up the good work. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you
Thank
for those
you.
kind words. Very good. Any other one out there? I don't see. I
No
don't
other
see
callers.
No other callers. This time I will close public comment. Move on to item 6, consent agenda. I'm looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda. Mr. Powell,
Mr. Supervisor, I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
a motion to approve is consented. Looking for support.
Andrew Voorhees will support that.
I have support from Andrew Voorhees. Roll call vote, Mr. Clerk.
Supervisor Kowal,
Yes.
Clerk Noble, yes. Trustee Ruggles,
Yes.
Trustee Smith,
Yes.
Trustee Voorhees,
Yes.
and Trustee Powell.
Yes.
Very good. Motion carries. Thank you. Item 7A and 7B combined. The approval of the minutes of the special board meeting of April 28th, 2021, and approval of the minutes of the special board meeting of May 11th, 2021. Any questions or comments on those minutes? If not, looking for a motion to approve.
Make a motion to approve, Supervisor Kowal,
The minutes of,
for the special board minutes meeting April 28th, 2021. And special board meeting May 11th, 2021.
okay, I have a motion looking for support.
I have one question, Clerk Noble, with amendments that were submitted, correct?
Go ahead, you broke up. I couldn't understand you.
With amendments that were submitted?
Yes,
Correct.
correct. With amendments that were submitted.
Looking for support. Will you support that, Liz?
Yes, support.
Okay, thank you. I have a motion and support. Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Smith,
Yes.
Clerk Noble, yes. Trustee Powell,
Yes.
Supervisor Kowal,
Yes.
Trustee Voorhees,
Yes.
Trustee Ruggles.
Yes.
Very good. Item 8 is a presentation. And at this time, annually, we usually hear from our good friend Pam Hill and her crew. And I'd like to thank all of them. And I will now turn this over to Pam and from Plant Moran. They are our bookkeepers, and they have that exciting job of counting numbers and tabulating and watching the paint dry. But I got to commend you. You guys do a great job, and you make it interesting. So I certainly appreciate it. And I know that sometimes it can be quite arduous. And I know how much trouble Elaine and Dawn cause you. So, you know, but I'd like to thank them also for all their help. So without further ado, Pam Hill.
All right, thank you very much, Rick. So yes, we are, I don't know, Garrett, if you want to go ahead and pull the presentation up. But we are here today to cover the results of the audit for the December 31st, 2020 fiscal year end. I know we're here maybe about a month later than we normally are. You guys have had a lot going on this last year. So we did spend this year about 350 hours auditing the books and records of the township. And along with that was actually an audit of a federal compliance audit. So typically the township has not had one of those. This would have been, I think, the first time since I've been working with the township that you've spent enough federal dollars to have one of those audits this year. So a little bit more time spent. We are in the process of wrapping that audit up. It's actually not 100% complete yet. There was a lot of nuances and things involved with that audit. To date, we do not have any findings. We don't anticipate any additional findings as we wrap up our federal compliance audit. But you will be receiving a copy of the results of that audit when it is final. which again, we expect to be at the most in the next month, but likely earlier than that. So we are here today. We will talk about the results of the financial statement audit. You should have in your packet a few deliverables. So you would have your financial statements, your end of audit letter, and then you had another letter this year, which was a report on internal controls. That was an additional report or opinion that we provide, and we were required to provide it this year in a different format just due to the federal compliance audit. And I guess just briefly on that report, the good news is that report says that we did not have any findings related to your internal controls around financial reporting. So that was a good report to receive for the township. So instead of going through all those documents in great detail, we've put together this graph presentation as we have in the past to kind of look at some of the trends and talk a little bit about the trends over the last several years for the township. And you'll see some of those additional federal monies and things pop up as Garrett goes through the numbers. Before we get into the numbers, I did want to point out within your financial statements, pages 1 and 2 of the financial statements is the audit opinion letter, and that's what the township hires Plant Moran to provide. It was, once again, an unmodified opinion, which basically means you can rely on the numbers within the financial statements. So it's the highest level of assurance that you can receive from your auditors. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Garrett and let him walk through the numbers.
Thanks, Pam. First off, hello everyone. I just want to make sure, can everyone see the PowerPoint slides?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. All right. So this first slide, we're going to take a high level look at the general fund, specifically the general fund revenue and transfers. So the way this slide is set up is it's essentially a 5-year look back. So you'll see 2016 to 2020, with 2020 being this far right column. So what you'll see is the general fund revenue total for 2020 was $6,995,000, which is about a $500,000 increase from last year. It's, as you can see, it's steadily been increasing over the past 5 years. The two main sources of revenue you'll see are property taxes, which had total revenue of $1,242,000, which was roughly a $54,000 increase from last year. So pretty consistent, from 2019. The other main source of revenue is revenue from the state, which includes both state shared revenue and state grants. So that had a total revenue of $3,529,000, which was actually an increase of roughly $421,000 from last year. And really what that increase is from is there was a $750,000 grant received from the Michigan Strategic Fund in 2020 that was received to be used for road infrastructure improvements. So that's why you'll see a slight increase in state revenue. Does anyone have any questions on general fund revenue before I go to the next slide? All right. So next, we'll kind of take a look at the general fund expenditures and transfers. And again, the slide is set up the same way. So it's a 5-year look back, beginning in 2016, with 2020 being in the far right column. You'll see total expenditures for 2020 were $6,732,000, which was about an increase of $1 million from last year, going from $5,752,000 to the $6,700,000. The two largest expenditure line items are general government, which was $3,869,000, and then public works, which was $1,579,000. The increase of the total expenditures really comes from this increase in the public works line. So you'll see there was roughly an increase of $1,300,000 from last year. And what that is from is just an increase of road construction costs that occurred in 2020. And that's really what drove this increase in the public works line.
And if you'll recall, Garrett talked about on the revenue slide, the grant that you received to pay for a lot of those road expenses. So it wasn't a direct use of fund balance. The township, was able to do a lot of those projects because of the proactiveness of management in the team at the township and really working to get as many grant dollars as possible to do these projects.
All right. So overall, the general fund had revenue in excess of expenditures of roughly 263,000, which led to an ending total general fund balance of 10,389,000. So what this third slide is looking at is really the unassigned fund balance piece of that total fund balance in the general fund. So you'll see the unassigned fund balance was 1,738,000, which is roughly an increase of 472,000 from last year. And really the main point of this slide is just as a benchmark, we'll take a look at the unassigned fund balance as a percentage of the annual expenditures. And again, there's no really right answer to this, to what this number should be, as it just varies from community to community and the different needs that you guys have. So what you'll see is the unassigned fund balance makes up 28% of the annual expenditures, which means that fund balance essentially can cover roughly 3.5 months of expenditures during the year. So, and that's about a 3% increase from last year.
So really you can see that the township has been able to maintain a stable fund balance. And this is the unassigned portion, so that the township has set money aside for future capital and other items as well. So really the township is in a strong financial position at the end of 12/31/2020, which I think really is a testament to not only the board members but also the staff and the team at the township, because let's face it, I don't think going into early on in 2020 no one really knew where we were going to end up at the end of 2020. So I think you've done a nice job of monitoring those expenses, capitalizing on any revenue opportunity you can in terms of grants, and all while you're definitely a growing community. So that has its own challenges too, and you've been able to navigate that very well, and I think that's evident in this slide.
Right. So this slide, essentially we've taken a look at the general fund, and now we're going to look at total expenditures for all of the governmental funds together.
Excuse me just a second. Could I go back to the previous slide just a quick second?
Yeah, no problem.
It says annual expenditures and then unassigned fund balance. That doesn't mean that the annual expenditures includes every penny that was spent, or it was just what was allocated or what was proposed to spend in the budget?
So that would include, Trustee Powell, that would include what was spent, what was actually spent in fiscal year 2020 in the general fund only. So Garrett's going to get to in the next slide, fire and police, solid waste and your sewer fund. But this would be just the general fund. So it doesn't, like I said, doesn't include police and fire within that.
So the budgeted numbers have been adjusted to actually show the expenditures, even though there might have been monies not spent in the budget for each department in the general fund. That would have been then moved over to the unassigned fund balance because it wasn't spent.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. So, yep. So I think, so just looking at the budget statement really briefly, you originally had budgeted to spend about 1.3 million out of fund balance. For various reasons, you were under budget specifically, and I think some of the work that you were going to do around the township halls, the township hall and grounds related to that, and then various other categories that were under, I think assessing was under supervisor's department. There was quite a few that were under budget. So collectively, the township actually ended the year adding about $260,000 to fund balance. So you came in better than budget, over $1 million.
Yeah, the term unassigned confused me because it was assigned, we assigned it in the budget, but it wasn't spent in the budget. So now I understand.
Correct. Yep. And that would have added from last year to that from the number from last year, it would have added to get to the 6.2, and then and some other factors in there as well. But yep. Mhm.
All right. So again, here, this slide is showing all the governmental funds together and looking at those total expenditures. Again, with the 5-year look back. So as you can see in 2020, total governmental fund expenditures was $20,924,000, which was a decrease of roughly $3,881,000 from the prior year. Now, looking at the expenditures, you'll see the main 3 line items are public works, $5,879,000, general government of the almost $4 million, and then public safety of the $9,444,000. Of these, general government and public safety were fairly consistent. Where you'll see the increases in public works. So you'll see public works had an increase of $1,634,000 from last year. And again, that's just related to those road construction costs that we kind of had discussed earlier. Now, overall, you'll see the expenditures decreased significantly from last year and really from the past 2 years. And where that decrease is coming from is the decrease in the recreation and culture line. So in 2018 and 2019, that's where all the construction costs of the new library building were incurred. So that's why you'll see almost outliers in this 2018, 2019 recreation culture line. And then in 2020, it came back down to more of a normal year as the library was completed. So that's really why there was a significant decrease in expenditures from 2019. Does anyone have any questions on this slide? All right. Next, we'll discuss the water fund, and I'll pass this along to Chris.
All right, thanks, Garrett. So this last slide here, slide number 6, is doing the same thing. It's doing a 5-year look back, similar to what Garrett had covered. And it's really showing the water fund in particular, and the operating revenue is in the teal color, and the operating expenses are in the orange color side by side. So again, showing this for the past 5 fiscal years. So in looking at the numbers, both operating revenue and expense increased in 2020. Revenue increased by a little bit more of a margin. So while there was a slight operating loss the past couple of years that you'll see, 2020 did see an operating income of about $78,000. So kind of taking a step back high level, looking at the operating income or operating loss is typically a good indicator of whether or not the current users of the system are in fact covering the costs that are associated with them using the system. So as you can see, this has historically been pretty close to break even, and with some years showing a minor loss and some years showing a minor operating income. So just continuing to keep an eye on these numbers will help to show you where you're at, as this is one of a few good measures in evaluating where the water fund is at. And then I guess just generally speaking, the fees charged are intended to cover all of the associated costs, and just essentially because this water fund is meant to be self-supporting. So for the graphs, are there any questions on the water fund or any of the funds that we've covered so far? I believe this is the last slide.
Yes, Christopher. This is just the water fund, or did we roll the sanitary sewer funds into this fund as well?
this is just the water fund, correct?
It's a great question though, because I think
Okay.
next year they will be shown differently.
Yes. All right, if there are no questions, I did want to cover the end of audit letter really quick. So I think Garrett's going to pull that up. And this is, I believe that it's about 8 pages in your packet. It's the letter addressed to the Board of Trustees. And before we get started, I did want to just extend a thanks to Rick, Mike, Anthony, and Elaine and Dawn. They all definitely, has spent time with us the last several months, helping us out throughout the audit, putting up with all of our questions. And they've just been really timely in getting back to us and just have done a really good job. And especially with this year, with doing things remote and with the additional federal compliance audit, there was a lot going on there. So we definitely appreciate all of their help and throughout this whole process. So this is the end of audit letter here. And this is essentially a follow-up letter to the pre-audit letter that we would have distributed to you before the audit actually started. So as you can see here, kind of in the middle of the page, the letter overall is broken out into 2 sections. The first section would show any required communications that we would have to communicate to the board. And the second section really has any other recommendations and just a few legislative and informational items that we would want to include. So I think the biggest takeaway from this letter, ironically, is what we have not included, which sometimes there's a third internal control letter here. So we did not need to include that third internal control section here, which would have been here if there were any internal control matters that was identified during the audit that would have been needed to be addressed. And there were no significant deficiencies and no material weaknesses identified as a result of our audit procedures this year. So good news there, that section did not need to be there. The first section, that is the required communications, that actually goes, if you'll go to the next page, Garrett, that goes for the next couple of pages here. And basically at a high level, what we're communicating here in these next couple of pages is, again, that there were no findings or no misstatements identified as mentioned. And really, there were no new accounting policies adopted this year. You got a break this year from GASB. So last year you had the big one in GASB 84 that the team had to adopt. So this year, it makes the end of audit letter pretty straightforward and quick and easy to cover, just because there were no new accounting pronouncements as well. So, and Garrett, if you want to go to page 5 really quick. So this will be the start of section 2 of the letter. And again, this is where we have any other recommendations or any legislative and informational items that we want to communicate. So I know we've discussed this previously and just want to reiterate that, as the township continues to grow, it's important to just ensure you continue to have a good capital plan and a long range financial forecast, which again is a really helpful and important tool that will just help you to make real-time decisions and to really be able to see the impact that these decisions will have on the township, both in the future and even in the current year. So I think this will be even more important, especially with the new award from the American Rescue Plan Act that's coming and will be passed through the state. So with that being said, with the ARPA funds that I just mentioned, I know Treasury has published some information as it relates to the eligible uses of the funding. So I'm not sure exactly where you are in the process of planning yet for the use of these funds, but we just would certainly encourage you to have a strategic approach here and just to keep in mind that these funds do have a longer runway for when they can be used, really, as opposed to the coronavirus relief funds from last year. So there's a longer runway here for when these funds can be used. So really just at the end of the day too, as this information continues to come out and as you continue to plan for the use of these funds, always feel free to reach out to us and keep us in the loop of your plans. And really also I wanted to put a plug here in the middle of the page here in the end of audit letter. We do have our COVID-19 Resource Center, which it's on our Plant Moran website, and this site is continuously being updated for the latest guidance and the latest strategy related to these funds. So just also another way you can stay in the loop on what's going on there.
And I do believe, Chris, there is, and you all probably already know this, but the Michigan State Department of Treasury did announce that they're going to have a webinar on Thursday, I believe is when it is, related to eligible uses and information on the ARPA funds. So if you're able to go on their website and maybe send a representative or as many as you want, I think that would be definitely worthwhile to have somebody attend that.
Absolutely. And then the rest of this letter is, again, really just some useful legislative and informational items that we thought might be helpful for you to look at your convenience. Really, there's nothing else here that I'm going to cover today. Just one thing I'll say is, Garrett, if you go to the last 2 pages, the next major accounting standard to look out for would be GASB 87 for leases. That's effective for the township's fiscal year 2022. So after the extension with COVID. So we are currently working and we'll continue to work with the White Lake team as this gets closer. But that's really all I had on the end of audit letter. Did anybody have any questions on the letter or anything that we've covered?
Mr. Powell.
Oh, I think you're on mute.
I am. I apologize. Where it says GASB on leases, define leases for me, would you please?
Sure. So under the standard, it actually changes the definition of what a lease is. And the new definition of a lease is the right to use a non-financial asset. So, obviously we'll be working with the township on that. One thing that comes to mind off the top of my head, which wasn't traditionally necessarily called a lease, would be the use of cell towers. So if the township owns cell towers that they're allowing, Comcast or someone else to use, that would technically fall under that new pronouncement. And so there's a lot of things out there in terms of contractual or contracts the township may have entered into that were not defined as a lease previously, but now under this new standard may. So we have already begun talking to the township. I don't think it's going to be, it's not going to be the biggest GASB that the township's implemented in the last 5 or 10 years, but it definitely will have some impact on the financial statements.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, where do we go from here, Pam?
We are done. So if there are not any more questions, we just wanted to thank you very much and looking forward to getting out and seeing y'all in person soon.
Yeah, as as it goes without saying, your firm does a great job. Your staff is very good to work with, and I always enjoy that. And again, I'd like to thank Elaine and Dawn and Lisa from our treasurer's office, and Elaine and Dawn are in accounting. And without them, this would not go forward. And Mr. Noble has 2 cents in there a little bit, and Mr. Roman did. So as we all did a little bit around here. So I'd like to thank everyone. Now I'm going to ask you the $1 million question that I ask you every year. Okay. Put all this into layman's terms for the public out there. Are we A, B, A plus, B plus, C? I'm not going to go lower than that because I know we're better than that. But where are we, Pam?
So, I have to do less Pulver some justice here. And so I would say definitely A plus, and I think I commented a little bit on it earlier, but, you ended the year in a very strong financial position, despite challenges with reduced state shared revenue. Frankly, building and things were down for definitely a period, all while trying to figure out how to manage a community during a pandemic. So I think you all should feel very good about where you ended up. In you've positioned yourself well as a township to allow the community to grow, which is obviously what the residents, as you continue to see the need for that within your community, I think it's going to position you well to continue to move forward. So, your balance sheet's strong in your continuing forward. I think on good solid ground. And like I said, especially during that kind of uncertain year, you really did a great job and ended up in a good spot. So
Good to know. Well, thank you very much for that layman's term interpretation.
of
Mr.
course.
Noble.
Yeah, I would like to thank Elaine and Don. Their door was shut quite often, and also thank Plant Moran, Pam, Garrett, and Christopher. They were a pleasure to work with. A lot of questions, but in Mike Roman's office, Lisa, for all their hard work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Have a great evening. I know you have another meeting that you have to attend, so we certainly appreciate you being here and presenting this in a timely manner. We'll look forward to seeing you soon. And, we can have that pizza party now. So
I know. I can't wait. So I want to get out to a Highland House.
there you go.
It's been calling my name lately.
There you go. There you go. All right. Thank you very much and have a good evening.
Thank you. All right. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay, next item will be under new business, and that will be item 9B, Preserve at Hidden Lake Revised Plan Development Agreement Approval. Mr. O'Neill, I'm going to let you take this.
Thank you. Boy, I wish all of them were as easy as this one is. You are all familiar with the Preserve at Hidden Lake. And let me share my screen here really quickly. The northerly phase, I'm going to call it phase 2. They've broken it up into some construction phasing, but hopefully you can all see it on your screen now. As you may recall, this northerly phase was filled with townhomes previously. The developer who is on the call tonight, Mr. Pisecki, and his group decided that they were not going to be as marketable as going to a duplex type product. And I believe wisely made the decision to make a change to their plan. So in doing this, they reduced the density by 23 units, which is very significant. But certainly our hope that this will be more of an open and shut construction project for them and get this kind of northerly portion built out and wrapped up and get some residents who are desiring this kind of product moved in. So what's before you tonight is just simply an amendment to the approved development agreement. The Planning Commission made a recommendation unanimously at their June 3rd meeting to approve this development agreement. In your packet, you'll see review letters from a few different reviewers. All of the comments are fairly boilerplate and simple. Lisa's on the call, and I don't know if Mike's here too, but just straightforward stuff. Title search, making sure that their owners have the ability to sign. Simply, correcting some numerical inconsistencies. All very, very minor things that I'm comfortable with recommending to you that we move ahead with, or that you move ahead with approval of this development agreement, subject to the incorporation of those suggested changes by the reviewers, which is again what the Planning Commission's motion was. So if anyone has any questions, I would be happy to answer them. And again, Craig Pisecki is here if you have any questions for him as well.
Okay, do you want to go back to the full screen if you can, John?
Absolutely.
Mr. Powell, I see your hand up.
Yes, and you may end up having to go back to that screen that he was just on, but I had a question on Unit 97. And Sean, have you seen the revised landscape plan? I noticed that the Planning Commission had some issues that they kind of wanted to see some additional landscaping there around Unit 97. But from an owner standpoint, they made the decision to drop from townhouses to duplexes, except for that triplex there they left in place. And if they had gone to duplexes, that would have pulled it a little further away from Union Lake Road. And I was curious as to why they left those townhouses there and went all duplexes everywhere else.
So good catch on that. That actually was a single unit previously, and actually quite a bit closer to Union Lake Road. And given the fact that they had already given up so much density, I didn't ask them and didn't suggest to them that they remove it. I just asked them to merge that single unit that was kind of by itself with the 2 units next door, creating that triplex, which gave, I think, 10 more feet of setback from Union Lake Road. And at the time, what Mr. Powell is referring to was some action on the final site plan, which was taken by the Planning Commission. There was a recommendation that some pine trees be added between that corner of lot 97 and the property line or the pathway. And so that'll be incorporated into that final set, those additional trees. And actually one of the comments in the development agreement by one of the reviewers was that the full landscape plan be incorporated as an exhibit to the development agreement. So we'll pull that into the final plan and then make sure the final plan is an exhibit of this development agreement. But to answer your question, 97 was by itself. And so there was no triplex. It was a duplex with a single next to it, sandwiched it over to save some space from the road, which is what Craig and I had talked about. And I certainly support moving forward in that direction. And while it may look a little bit crowded, believe it or not, there were 23 more units approved in this same area. So I'm absolutely comfortable with moving ahead, given the math involved.
Okay.
I just had just another
Yes.
statement, and I've been called by not hundreds of people, but several people. And then I went by and took a look at it during the tree clearing stage. And hopefully we can adjust for this in the final landscape plan. I didn't understand why some beautiful large oak trees and large mature trees were removed from the site in areas where there weren't going to be any buildings, there wasn't going to be any construction, and along the right of way, typically along Union Lake Road. And I was disappointed to see those large, beautiful trees removed. And then we're going to put little landscape trees in their place. And I didn't understand why they had to be removed for this project.
I'll probably let Mr. Pisecki address that.
Basically, of all the trees that were removed were basically removed for the project, for the development of the project. I mean, there were some trees in certain areas that you'd have to kind of work around, which really didn't make it real feasible to do that. So even though there was some big trees, obviously we don't want to remove them. I mean, the more trees we remove, the more it costs us, so try to keep as many as possible. But anything that was removed was due to the size of the lots, the grading, all that stuff that goes along with it. There's a lot of underground structures and also drainage along Union Lake Road that had to be dealt with. So even though it may have looked like there was nothing really in the way per se, but I mean, overall, it's pretty tight, each individual unit. So that's really the main reason.
In the future, I would like maybe our township to maybe suggest some boring underneath trees. When you have a tree that's 100 years old and you remove it, quite frankly, just for utility, we should be able to design under, around those and save those large trees, because there were a number out in the road right of way, in the 60-foot future road right of way, that were removed. And if it was just done for storm sewer, shame on us. But we just want to catch that in the future then. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions from any of the board members? Mr. Noble.
The vote, I just like to ask to be recused as for voting on this with a conflict of interest. I don't have any financial stake in the game, but one of the partners is my son's grandfather, and for appearances, I'd like to recuse myself.
I don't see that's a problem. Council, do we need to vote on that?
I believe we need a roll call vote on that.
Lisa, do you want a roll call vote for him to withdraw?
Yes, please.
Okay. Roll call vote for the withdrawal of Mr. Noble from the vote.
The abstention.
Abstention, I beg your pardon. Abstention. Mr. Noble, I'm going to let you do the roll call and record it.
You ready? Supervisor Kowal,
Yes.
Supervisor Powell. I'm sorry, Mike, Trustee Powell, I'm sorry. Trustee Powell. Sorry. Trustee Voorhees.
Yes.
Trustee Smith.
Yes.
Trustee Ruggles.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Sorry about that, Trustee
Mr. Noble,
Powell.
Mr. Noble has abstained. Any other questions or comments from the board at this time on this agreement? Mr. O'Neill, any last comments?
I would just ask that any motion to approve this just be subject to all the comments that are contained within the review letters.
Okay. Steve Smith, care to make a motion?
Yes, I can do that if you'd like. Let me pull that up. So we're making a motion. Am I unmuted? Yes, you can hear me, correct?
Yes.
Thank you. Make a motion to approve the community development for Preserve at Hidden Lake amended plan development agreement approval. Is that what we're entitling it, correct?
Yes.
Correct.
And if you could add in there, subject to all the letters and recommendations from the consultants and the planning commission?
Of course, and subject to all of the recommendations of the consultant and the planning department and planning commission as well.
Thank you. We have a motion looking for support.
Support.
Support from Mr. Scott Ruggles. Roll call vote, Mr. Noble.
Supervisor Colwell,
Yes.
trustee Powell,
Yes.
trustee Voorhees,
Yes.
trustee Ruggles,
Yes.
trustee Smith.
Yes.
Motion carries. Okay, Craig, you're good to go.
Awesome. Thanks very much, guys. You guys have a great night.
Thanks. You too.
Thanks. Pat, you had an easy night.
Yeah. Moving on to new business continued, 9C, request to approve DPS position utilities maintenance worker and utilities maintenance foreman. Mr. Potter.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. So I have before you tonight two job descriptions. One is a foreman position that's going to be a newly created position. The other is a modification of our current utilities maintenance worker position. So as everyone knows, we've been extremely busy here in the last few years in White Lake Township. We are in the fortunate position to be struggling to keep up with this workload. And so what I'm asking for is for the board to approve these job descriptions as written and authorize Human Resource Director Kathy DeRocher to move forward with the hiring process. There's a couple of things I wanted to point out about both of these positions. As I understand, and I didn't, forgive me, I still haven't watched the last meeting, but I understand that there's been a lot of discussion on this lately. The foreman position is, my intention on the foreman position is to promote our senior most qualified operator into this position. I've been holding off on this for a while because Eagle has postponed their testing dates and they had no testing dates last year. So we've been waiting on it. We also were waiting for our water rate structure to get done, which we completed a few months ago, as you know. And so I think it's the right time now to move forward with this. I like that idea better than bringing in, say, an outside foreman and blocking my guys' promotions for, an unknown period of time, but likely many years. I think this effectively creates a career ladder here for these guys to move up in. They do an excellent job. I do not want to lose either one of them. They, I feel, have, earned the right to have this opportunity to move up within our ranks rather than being forced to leave their organization like I was in Waterford. So that's my intention with the foreman position. The other position for the utility maintenance workers, what I've done with this position is updated the examples of the essential job functions to more accurately represent what we currently do here in DPS, as well as created a tiered structure that's going to go with that essentially ties their pay rate directly to the certifications that they hold. Our current job description that both my guys work under now actually pays at the grade 1 after 3 years level, and that's what those guys are currently at. I think it would be not in the best interest of the township to continue with that strategy. What we've had there their job description in the past basically allowed them up to 5 years to achieve their S1, their D1 state certifications. You know, there were, like I say, some delays with COVID and things like that that were beyond their capability. But the issue that I have with that is what happens if they don't achieve it? You know, now the township has a situation where, you know, I have to do something there. This pay structure allows me to hire basically anybody that I think is the best qualified candidate, whether they have no licenses or all of the licenses. And then allows me to fit them into a pay rate that's appropriate for the level of the experience and the certification that they have. And then once they achieve that next license, then they move up that scale. We had something essentially exactly like this that we called career ladder positions in the contracts that I negotiated with Waterford Township, and I was the chief steward there. It worked very well for us. We did compare Waterford Townships, or actually several of our neighboring townships' pay rates as well as their responsibilities. And I think Kathy DeRocher and I have come to an agreement that these seem, you know, we're pretty comfortable with these pay rates, and I feel that they're appropriate. There is a typo on page 4 of the utility maintenance position. In the seniority category, that should be start after 1 year, after 2 years, not 2 months. And then after 3 years, we will make that correction before we move forward with this. With that, I'd like to open it up to the board, and I'll answer any questions that you may have.
Well, first thing I would like to say, it's about time, Aaron. Okay. I've been chasing you around like a crazy man here, trying to get you to get some help. And I'm glad that you have now come before the board to do so, because I firsthand have spent many hours in the water department over the last few years and realize how their tasks can be. You can plan one thing for a day and then something happens and changes your whole day. So I know that you juggle a lot of balls over there, and another set of hands will make things much easier. And as we grow and continue to grow, and we'll see a significant increase from a percentage standpoint of in the growth of the system, that it means more manpower. So I'm very pleased to see that you're moving forward with these positions, and the descriptions that you and Kathy came up with, I think, are very well written and very complete. Any questions or comments from the board members? Andrea Voorhees.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with Rick, Aaron. We talked about this a while back when you and I met, absolutely like 6 months ago. So yeah, I'm glad this is finally coming up to us, because I'm absolutely ready to approve this.
Mr. Powell.
Well, my first comment is if Mr. Kowal had actually spent all the time he said working instead of just watching you, Aaron, you wouldn't need all this extra help.
Yeah, you can only ask so much of that guy, I tell you.
The next question I have is, besides the pay, there's something that I've been really stressing here, and I'm going to take this same opportunity. The pay is one thing, but to not address personal time and family time and vacation time, we're doing a disservice. And here we are, we're creating 2 additional spots and not addressing the vacation time. And so I'm going to ask you point blank, how much vacation time does a person get his first year in this scenario?
So, you know, our benefits package is not part of this job description. I guess I would talk to Kathy DeRocher about that. Typically, we've done what the union contract, you know, our non-union personnel followed the union contract. I believe that's 10 days, but I'm not 100% sure.
I think Kathy can address that. And Kathy?
Yeah, that's correct. After the first 6 months, the person would earn 3 vacation days. And at the completion of the first year, they would earn the additional 7, bringing them up to 2 weeks. It's more than likely that the promotion would be an internal promotion. So that person wouldn't lose what they've already earned. And both those employees are still on the appropriate level of vacation time for their years of service.
And Mike, to answer your question, this is something that I know that we've had some discussions, and it cannot be implemented at this time. And we will address this. We are coming into some negotiations this year, and there'll be some things that'll be brought up and discussed, and that's the appropriate time and place to do that.
So these are both union positions, correct?
No, these are non-union positions.
All right, so.
But they follow, generally, we follow things following an order.
Yeah, these are non-exempt positions. So they are non-union, but they are hourly positions.
So my concern is, and if you hire somebody new, and I know you're shaking your head at me, Rick, but in 6 months, you're going to ask a family man to only have 2 days vacation in 6 months. That's what you're asking us to approve.
Again, benefits are not part of a job description. I'm not
you're
asking you to
us,
approve that.
Aaron, but you're asking us to approve 2 positions here that are going to be filled, and this is the only time I can address it.
Okay. I have not looked at benefits that are part of this. The township human resource director, the benefits packages of the township are her department. I have not looked at that as part of this.
So, Mike, to answer your question, we can address this globally by looking at policies and procedures. We do have to consider contract negotiations, which are coming up this summer, and that would be an appropriate time to reevaluate our vacation schedules. And it doesn't mean that it wouldn't impact the new hires. It's just that we would have to kind of, we don't want to jump ahead before we've had negotiations, and then we can follow suit and make changes into policies and procedures if need be.
So, Mr. Powell, I will assure you this is something that's going to be coming up. But again, it's just a matter of timing.
Yeah.
Trustee Smith, I just see your hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. So Mr. Potter and I had a conversation about this, and I just want to make a couple of comments and thank him. I want to thank him for taking into consideration to promote within. I think that's important for our employees to know that they have growth and opportunity within our township and that they're recognized for their hard work and are able to be promoted. So thank you. Unbeknownst to him, he created a tier format that we have been speaking about trying to streamline, that are moving forward, that we would be implementing some kind of tier format for other employees. So thank you for being right in line with us, even though you didn't know it, because you had missed the last couple of meetings. And then again, I support Trustee Powell for quality of life is so important. And as we move forward, I just want to place on the record that we've spoken about it before, and we'll address it as Mr. Osher suggested in the summer when it's the appropriate time. But quality of life is important for our employees, and we do need to give them vacation time and family time. So I look forward to addressing that when it comes time in the summer. But I just wanted to thank Mr. Potter for promoting within, and this board has been very supportive of moving water projects forward. And in order to do that, we need to give him the follow all the way through and give him the manpower and able to do that. And water issues are a hindrance in White Lake, and they do sometimes deter business from coming into White Lake. So in order to fully support him, we need to fully support him and give him, the ability to accomplish these tasks that we're hoping to accomplish. So thank you so much, Mr. Potter.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Mr. Noble.
Well, I think we're looking at 2 separate things. Kathy, is this a union negotiated position?
No, it's not.
So if we change that policy that Trustee Powell was talking later down the road, are those people able to negotiate front loading their time? I think that's what he was saying. Correct, Trustee Powell?
Correct.
I mean, that's something we can look at. Absolutely.
And is there a reason, if they're following a union guidelines contract, that they're not going to be in the union? I just wanted to clarify that. I think that was a question he had.
Right.
Yeah, there's a reason, because that's typically just been the way that these positions have gone. And, you know, the salaried employees here, as well as the board members, have always followed suit with the union contracts. As far as benefits go, like I said, benefits package has never been a part of a job description. So I haven't looked at the benefits packages. That's a related issue, I guess, for an employee, obviously, but it's the HR director's job to balance that bottom line. You know, my employees right now make about $56,000 a year. With their benefits all totaled up, I'm paying, you know, close to $100,000 a year for those folks. So, you know, that's outside of my scope, I guess, and I've just relied on the HR director to, you know, handle that side of things.
And
so
so
she
she shall.
Budget for it, but that's about it.
And I'd like to mention though, Aaron's been needing this help. We've discussed it quite a few times. So I'm total favor for him getting the help that he needs. I guess the question back to Mike would be, would that position, Kathy, be able to, when they come on, would they negotiate that time or would they follow? I mean, how would that work? I think that's what the clarification that Trustee Powell was wondering. If we change that policy down the road, is that going to be when we're hiring department heads, future department heads moving forward?
Well, we would either need to come up with employment agreements, individual employment agreements for those positions, and they could really only be non-union. The union collective bargaining agreement would dictate any type of vacation time or paid time off.
So them not being in the union, then they can negotiate that then, correct?
If we allow them to, that's an
That would have to
administrative
be done.
decision. It's not, we want to have some consistency.
Yeah, just for the record, I'm on an employment contract, an employment agreement, but that was done and approved at the board level along with the job description at that time. So we do not have that prepared for these positions. These are, and just like I said, for the record, just make sure everybody understands, one of these positions will be a new position to fill in the vacant utilities maintenance worker position that, you know, my other operator will vacate when he gets promoted. So this is the addition of one employee, not two employees.
Yeah, correct. I think that was just going back to that moving forward, what Trustee Powell was trying to understand, because we've had those discussions. So they're not a union position, therefore that would be something that would have to be approved, correct? Is that what we're asking, Kathy? They would have to come before the board like Aaron
Well, I
just
think
said?
it's something we could work on to create a policy to move forward with, correct?
But I think what is said, you might have somebody come in with way more experience down the road, to Trustee Powell's point earlier. So they might have years and years of experience compared to somebody that might only have 10. I know Aaron's been feverishly looking for somebody and trying to place the right people in there because he's been doing double duty. He was out last week, right, Aaron, by yourself, taking care of business out there. So we need the help.
Well, we've had kind of a revolving COVID situation over here. But, yeah, I had one operator out for 3 weeks, so I have to fill in the gap.
Correct.
Obviously, everything else suffers if I'm out of the office doing that work.
So I'm not trying to increase the township's cost a great deal. I'm just in favor of front-end loading 10 vacation days, certainly a week, the first day they start. I just don't think they ought to have to work for a year before they get 10 days vacation time to be with their family. That's all.
I think this is what we discussed.
Yep.
Yeah, and I just don't know that that's
meetings ago.
One at a time.
Sorry about that.
All right, go ahead.
And I agree with you. I'm not disagreeing with you. I just, like I said, it was never the scope of this. You know, it's not the scope of my position here. So I haven't researched that.
Go ahead, Kathy, please.
One of the other things we need to consider is that we've hired quite a few new employees this year. So we can't just look at the person we're going to hire now. We've got to consider how that's going to impact the last 5.
And it's just exactly what I'm talking about, Mike, when I talk about when the time is coming up very shortly here where we'll have this discussion and the board will be obviously involved in it. Mr. Ruggles?
Well, it seems like a very appropriate time for the board to get involved when we're hiring 2 new people.
Right.
Or, I mean, we're here now talking about this, and like Mr. Noble says, he doesn't feel like you can put together a cookie cutter type, scenario, because everybody's going to come to the table with a different set of tools or experience, etc. So we have the opportunity to look at these 2 individuals here right now in front of us. So maybe it
Well, I
would be
feel like-
appropriate to do that.
Yeah, correct. I feel like, with the pay rate structure that I have here on page 4 of the job description, we've accommodated with this, everybody from, a high school graduate with no experience all the way up through an S1 D level, D1 level certified operator like myself. That's why I like this tiered structure, because an individual, once they've earned the achievement, then they're appropriately paid, for the achievement level that they earned. I think down the road, in the short term, I think it's really unlikely, I should say this, that we're going to find an S1 D1 level operator that's ready to, leave their position at another township and come over here to start here, just to be another operator here. Most of those folks are moving up a ladder somewhere. So I think in the short term, this will probably reduce my costs that I spend on this employee position, because they're going to be somewhere in this, lower rank pay schedule. Now, like I said, with their benefits package or, an employment contract, we haven't done that in the past with these guys that I have now. So I haven't looked into that. Like I said, I'm not opposed to that. I also am on 10 days vacation. I've been here for over 5 years now. So, and also I cannot earn compensatory time because I'm salary exempt employee. So, I don't disagree with you on that. I think that's a separate issue that is related to this. And so forgive me for being unprepared to discuss this. As I said, I missed the last meeting. I understand that there was quite a bit of discussion about it. So I didn't include it in this, and that sounds like I should have.
No, it would
I
be inappropriate for you to do that, Aaron. This has been on my heart for quite a long time, and what a shame that you only get 10 days vacation time. That's inappropriate, and we need to do something about that. Mr. Supervisor, you keep saying very shortly. Tell me when that very shortly is going to happen.
Very shortly.
Mike, can I interject real quick?
Yes, very shortly, Mike.
I'd like to say that Kathy's our HR director and Rick's the head of HR. So my suggestion would be that Rick and Kathy sit down with these new employees. They can come up with a experienced and they can modify that. I think that's out of Aaron's wheelhouse, to be fair to him.
Correct.
He did a great job with communicating with Kathy on all these jobs. I mean, this is incredible, the amount of detail that's in this packet. But Supervisor Kowal, being the head personnel director, he can negotiate that because they're not in the union. And he's able to do such as with his discretion. I have no problem with it. It's up to the board members, but for him and Kathy to sit down and be able to have that right to negotiate that and front unload those people. Because I think what we're trying to accomplish moving forward is to get it's very hard to get talent, and we're trying to bring in the best, the brightest, the professional. And if you're going to bring somebody from GM and Ford wants you as a professional engineer or manager, they're going to have to offer you something to bring that talent over. So to all fairness, Aaron did a great job. Kathy did a great job, but I would defer that to Kathy and ultimately over to the supervisor to negotiate that time and give him the flexibility as a personnel director to do that.
Thank you.
Anthony, do you mean
Andrew Voorhees?
Sorry, Anthony, do you mean HR manager to do that? Because to me, there needs to be consistency of union versus non-union. Did you mean to say, you said personnel manager? Did you mean to
Rick
say
Rick is the head of HR? If you read
yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so that would be Rick working with Kathy and negotiating. That would give him they're not in union, so Rick and Kathy could work that out in front end those people moving forward with these contracts, such as Aaron, such as Sean, such as Nick, such as any of our professional. And I like to refer to them as professionals because that's what they truly are. They're professional people.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I think I said it, but just in case I didn't, I just would appreciate that when we come up with that consistent plan, that it can be based on experience and certificate, sorry, not spitting it out right. Certifications. Thank you. Thanks for the help. So that, you know, our employees have some incentive that when they have earned something or advanced in their career, that they're rewarded for that, and not just, you know, we don't want to, it's a hard time for everybody still, and COVID's still happening. So we don't want to give raises out for people that maybe are brand new, but we've set a standard that if they have earned something, then they're, you know, appropriately recognized for that. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Smith. Any other questions or comments this time? I'd like to move this for approval.
Make a motion to approve.
Whoop, excuse me, Kathy, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I'm sorry. When, if you approve the job description for the foreman position, would you please include the approval for the wages as well? Aaron established another step increase for that position.
Okay, so we'll approve the job description as well as the pay schedule.
Correct.
That's for both positions, correct, Kathy?
Yes, I just assumed we do them separately.
Mr. Noble?
No, I had
Go ahead.
Thank you.
Just for clarification purposes, Mr. Potter, this is the typo that we need to correct for 2 months on that page as well.
Correct.
So in the motion, we'll just include that.
Correct. Mr. Noble, you were starting. You want to pick up?
I was going to make a motion to approve the DPS utilize the maintenance worker grade. I guess it's 5-1 and utility maintenance foreman with the appropriate pay steps accordingly to your, that's attached to your documents.
And the correction, on the 2 month to 2 year note.
Yes, sir. And the correction on that as well.
We have the motion. Looking for support.
Support.
We have support from Andrew Voorhees. Roll call vote, please.
Clerk Noble, yes. Trustee Ruggles.
Yes.
Trustee Powell.
Well, I would have voted for this if we had instantaneously given Aaron 3 weeks starting tonight of vacation time, but I'll have to settle for just saying that now for this.
Darn it. I tipped my hands too, my hand too early.
Okay, we have a yes. Next.
Trustee Voorhees.
Absolutely, yes.
Trustee Smith.
Yes.
And Supervisor Colwell.
And undoubtedly yes. Okay. Okay, thank you all. Moving on to 9E, request to resume door-to-door solicitations. Mr. Clerk?
As you know, COVID, Mr. Supervisor, has lifted, and we're requesting that we go back to our old opening that up to door-to-door solicitation, which is before you in a memo that I presented. And then I'd like the board to recognize that and let us open back up to solicitation to, other than just we have a couple ice cream vendors that are out in the community.
No, it's that time of year again. People are coming out and starting to move around. So I don't think, I don't have a problem with that. I know we had to suspend it for obvious reasons, but I don't think that we have any issue moving forward. Andrea, you had your hand up?
I sure did. What was your tentative date to reopen that? July 1st, immediately?
Immediately.
Have you had a lot of people come in?
Not yet. No,
the only reason I say this, literally and figuratively, in the last 2 weeks, we had a gentleman selling, I think it was windows going down our road. It didn't phase me I'll be honest with you, till the night that maybe he shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah, and a lot of times you have people that go out into communities like that, and trustee Breeze, and their case in places. That's why we have these ordinances.
Absolutely.
So when my recommendation to the citizens out there, as well as all of us, when you see somebody and your gut feeling says, hey, this doesn't look right, they shouldn't be out here, that's what the police is there. Call them out, they'll check them out. And that is against the law. They don't have a solicitation permit.
Yeah, it didn't, like I said, it didn't really even phase me. And I can't believe I'm embarrassed to say it didn't phase me that we didn't have it open. So no, absolutely looking forward. Well, obviously looking forward is not going to matter, but looking backwards, yeah, I should have absolutely done something. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Ruggles.
I'd like to make a motion.
Very good, sir. Please do.
I'll make a motion to approve the resuming of door-to-door solicitation permits effective immediately.
Support.
We have motion with support. Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Smith,
Yes.
Clerk Noble, yes. Supervisor Colwell,
Yes.
Trustee Powell,
Yes.
Trustee Ruggles,
Yes.
Trustee Voorhees.
Yes.
Very good. Okay. The next item we have on our agenda is request to approve Triangle Trail design proposal. Well, as all of you know, we passed a millage here a few years back to try to provide trails for our community. And one of the things that we did was try to target a trail that would be useful, centrally located, and frankly, in a higher profile area so people can really see that we're trying to move forward. So that being said, the Triangle Trail was developed, and Mr. O'Neill and I and Justin and Parks and Rec and a number of people have been looking at it, trying to make sure it all comes together. So, Mr. O'Neill, I'm going to let you take this over.
Well, that was a great introduction. And what you have before you, hopefully it's on your screen, is the Triangle Trail that the supervisor is speaking of. We received a bid nearly a year ago from DLZ, or I should say, quote, to do design work. The Parks and Rec Committee has been very supportive of that, and recently received that Ralph Wilson grant, which was very generous, and has provided the township with $50,000 toward the design of this. What you see here are two sections. This is the in blue, you'll see the missing section of the trail on M59. And then of course in red here, you see the balance of the trail that's incomplete. The total design cost for these two options is $55,000. So with the grant from the Ralph Wilson Fund or Foundation, we'll only have to pay for $5,000 of this design, and we'll have a shovel-ready project. So that's the recommendation tonight, which is before you for action, which would be to move ahead with the not to exceed amount of $55,000 to design the Triangle Trail with the alternate design, which would include the M59 portion, which is what you see here on your screen. This was unanimously recommended for positive action by the Parks and Rec Committee. And again, they recommend that the $5,000 missing amount between the grant and the true cost of the design would be paid for from the Parks Fund. I would like to note really quickly that we are able to go back to the Ralph Wilson Foundation to ask for further funds for construction. And I don't know what the limit would be, but because they look favorably upon this project from the design standpoint, I would hope that they would also look favorably upon a request for assistance in funding. So we're pretty excited about that. I think the estimate a year ago was about $560,000 for construction. It's probably gone up, but you're looking at, roughly, I'll say a $600,000 project to install, which you see here on your screen in both the red and blue. So that's before you tonight. It's pretty exciting, and it's really straightforward. So if you have any questions, please let me know. Andrea, you're a committee member. If you have anything to add, certainly.
No, right. Like you said earlier, they're all in favor of it. We want to make White Lake walkable. So absolutely, Parks and Rec is in favor of it.
Thank you. Any comments, Mr. Ruggles?
Yeah, I've got a question. Yeah, I saw that figure in there, 560. So now we assume maybe the construction's up to 600. What's the maintenance aspect of this? Has anybody given any thought to maintenance at all?
As far as make, oh, go ahead, Sean.
No, no.
Well, I was gonna say about the policy, we don't plow them in the wintertime. That is a recommendation not to be done, okay?
Well, I understand there's no plowing, but it goes as far as there's so little maintenance that we're not even aware of where the sidewalks are because they've disappeared. You know what I mean? So I just wasn't sure if any maintenance, who handles that?
I would say, generally when we put sections in, it's not usually in front of township property or else we would maintain it. It's generally the adjacent
MDOT.
property owner. Well, and I don't even know about that. They've gone along and pulled the shoulder or the pathway or whatever you want to call it. They call it different things depending on who's asking for maintenance and money. So when it's a sidewalk project, they call it a shoulder of the road, so they don't have to do anything with it. And when you ask for money for a pathway, I think I messed that up. But either way, when it behooves them to call it a pathway, they call it a pathway. When it behooves them to call it a shoulder, they call it a shoulder. Whatever they call that thing is coming out in certain sections of township along M59. And so definitely they're not going to do a thing for maintenance. They don't even maintain what they own and put in. So they're certainly not going to maintain or participate in the care of anything we put in. And that's not a knock to them. That's just not what they do. So.
Yeah. Okay.
So to answer your question, I don't know. We're going to hope that the adjacent landowners would clear the sidewalk or the pathway. But it's, and pull weeds out of it when it grows through, but we can't guarantee that.
I asked because, the sidewalk that the church put in front of their property on 59 looks great, right? And that's been a number of years. So they take care of that.
Right.
And there's other sections that don't look so well. So I wasn't sure. I guess it just falls on the owner.
There are certain 8-foot sections of pathway that look like 5-foot wide sections of pathway because they're starting to, grow over.
Yeah, you can ask MDOT about that on M59, where they finally have now uncovered, after me nagging at them for the last 6 years to do so, have actually been out there trying to remedy some of that problem, which I was totally surprised when they showed up out there and actually started working on it. So, but it is a concern. It's something the township will have to address as time goes by. But nonetheless, we do need to move forward. We do have people that tend to walk down Tegadyne Road because of the ice cream store that is located there. And it is extremely hazardous when I see 2 or 3 women with strollers pushing their strollers on the shoulder of the road. I get itchy as being very uncomfortable. So these are the types of things in that area. And since that's where we're going to have a populace that lives there, and it's going to be ultimately a extension of part of the Stanley Park accessibility and hopefully a longer trail in connection with other parks in the long run. It's a step in the right direction. So, Mr. Powell.
As you board members know, I'm a major proponent of pathways in the township, absolutely. But I have a professional issue here that I wanted to ask the administration to at least think about. The cost for DLZ to do the work in the township has ballooned extremely high. I've probably personally designed more lineal footage and pathways than DLZ has. And so the cost of this for DLZ to design only is $55,000. Normally it's a 10 to 12% construction cost to handle all the engineering, the design, the planning, the bidding, the construction management, and all of that. And so I'm going to vote for this because I want this project to go. But I would very much like the administration to sit down and say, all right, a project over a certain amount, we need to bid out the engineering as well. Because I personally believe that DLZ has gotten more expensive since it was J&A, and they are making a tremendous living on White Lake Township. And I believe that the engineering can be held as a bid item as well. And I believe that White Lake Township would get better services at a lower cost if we bid out the engineering for these bigger projects. And I had put DLZ on notice that I was going to do this in past meetings. And this one is just kind of stepped out, and I very much like the administration to come up with a policy to bid out engineering as well.
Very good. Thank you for that comment. Mr. Noble.
When I came in here, I noticed our DLZ bill was 505,000 last year, and having 5 years in development myself and being on the plan commission, I can't agree more with what Mr. Powell, Trustee Powell said. The bills are getting out of hand. It's outrageous. Not only outrageous to us, it's outrageous to our customers, which are the developers and people within that want to come to White Lake Township. And I would love to see what he said, a policy drafted when it comes over there. And Trustee Powell, that's your forte too, that we see something that's competitive, but that doesn't hinder us from attracting people coming here because of these outrageous bills.
Well, the bills aren't necessarily outrageous, so we spend a tremendous amount of money to have a lot of different things done within this township. And the money that we've paid out is generally monies that have come in and fees that are charged to individuals that conduct business and do development within the township. Now, there is a possibility that things may need to be looked at and potentially looked at from the standpoint of rebidding, or maybe looking at an alternate engineer for certain projects and than others. Those are things that can be discussed in the future, but it's not that the township has been outlaying that money. I want to make sure the public is very much aware of that. This isn't money that the township is just randomly spending. It's monies that are generated by the developments that come in, that the developers require things done, water main, whatever the engineering that the requirements are. It can be a parking lot at a building that's being built and it has to be reviewed. It can be a specialized permit that needs to be reviewed. It's a whole myriad of things. So I just want the public to understand that these are pass-through costs. These are not necessarily costs directly to the township.
And I couldn't agree with you more. We can be more competitive to what you said. I think that's what Trustee Powell was saying. We could be more competitive to that point.
Trustee Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Although it's been covered, that was going to be my brief comment on this topic as well. Huge proponent and support of pathways and sidewalks in our community, which I think I can safely speak for our board that we all are. And my concern was the cost, and this with DLZ as well. Do we have to use DLZ in the future? I would like to bid this out. I think it's rather high, and anywhere that we can save our residents costs, we should be proactively doing that. So my brief concern, I'm full favor of the sidewalk, of course, but my brief concern was the cost from DLZ on this. And then I just wanted to mention to Trustee Ruggles' excellent point on the maintaining, to bring that up. And just even good old Michigan weather, the sidewalks heave, not even weeds. So who takes care of those tripping hazards? We do need to address that perhaps in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ruggles.
Yeah, I just like to add, it's nice to have such a diverse board, you know. In this particular case, Mr. Powell has so much expertise. I appreciate him mentioning that because I wouldn't have known.
Very good. Okay, any other questions at this time? Entertaining a motion. Andrea?
Hang on, I'm beyond it, so hang on. Let me back up. Approve the, so this is for the triangle design money for DLZ, correct?
Correct.
Okay. To approve to spend up to $55,000 in cost of the $50,000 Ralph C. Wilson Fund to be used towards the project of the triangle pathway. Engineering, sorry.
Okay, thank you. I have a motion, looking for support.
Support.
Thanks. Just really quickly, I know Andrew mentioned the 50,000, but the other 5,000 would then come from the recommendation from the Parks Committee is to come from the park fund. Just so
correct. Thank you for clarifying that, Mr.
Absolutely.
O'Neill.
And Trustee Voorhees, you broke up a little bit, so maybe you said that, but I just wanted to make sure it was clear.
No, you're good, Sean. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, we have motion, we have support. Roll call vote, Mr. Noble.
Clerk Noble, yes. Trustee Ruggles,
Yes.
Trustee Powell,
Yes.
Supervisor Kowal,
Yes.
Trustee Smith,
Yes.
and Trustee Voorhees.
Yes.
Very good. Item 9G, Resolution 21-021, authorizing publication of notice of intent to issue capital improvement bonds. Lisa, do you have a comment on this? I didn't see, I couldn't hear you if you're talking. So,
No, this is an Aaron and your bond council resolution. I did read it. It looks fine to me.
that's what I was looking for. That was the comment I was looking for. Mr. Potter.
Yeah, so I had a discussion with Eric McLaughlin, our bond counsel on this. The amount of $8 million was a guess that Bobby Benzinski and Eric McLaughlin came up with. It's been suggested by Eric that we may want to increase that. Now, again, this doesn't require or obligate the township to spend $8 million or any higher amount. But because this is a DWRF, a drinking water revolving fund project, we have to meet the milestone schedule of the DWRF project that's been agreed on. We're getting kind of towards the end here. Eric says that if we get our bids back, which the bid opening is on the 24th at 2 p.m., and we're over this, then we have not met the requirement for advertising, and then we would have to go back and do this over again. If we have to do that, we won't meet the milestone schedule and we'll be out of the queue for funding in the 2021 fourth quarter calendar period. We don't want to do that at this point. You know, I'd like to give the board as much flexibility. What I'm hearing from our contractors right now is that material suppliers are only guaranteeing quotes for 5 days. So there's been a lot of discussion we had our pre-bid meeting on the 8th. There was a lot of discussion on, you know, what happens if we get bids and then by the time we start the construction project, the costs have continued to rise. And as well as the fact that we don't know what's going to happen if we get bumped out of this fourth quarter 2021 priority list for funding. We don't know what their funding ability is going to be next year. So there's no guarantee that if we bump this off for 1 year or even 1 quarter, that the funding is going to be there. So I'm going to ask the board to, just for the purposes of advertising so that we meet all the requirements of the law, take this do not exceed amount up to, you know, the highest level that you as a board are comfortable with, to give us the flexibility to, you know, have the discussion if we come in, you know, a certain percentage over our project budget. You know, at that point, we'll be bringing it to the board and the, you know, the board, you as the board can decide if you want to go forward with the project or scrap the project. But I just don't want a number on, you know, a resolution that we're only moving forward with it right now because of the required legal timelines. Once it's out there, we really can't do anything with it. So I'm going to say, you know, I was using 15 as a number just to make sure that there's absolutely no possible way that we exceed that. I don't think that if we double the cost of the project, the board's going to be in favor of, you know, moving forward. But I guess I'll leave that up to you for discussion. I'll answer any questions that you may have.
Oh,
I think, Aaron, I think that's extremely wise. DWRF is so hard to deal with, and if there's any glitch whatsoever, they bypass right over you. My colleagues around the country right now, the projects around the country, they're not even able to get ductile iron pipe, no matter what price they put on it. And so this may be a very, very difficult project to go forward, but I'm in total agreements with Aaron. We don't need any glitch on the DWRF issues. The negative side of putting too much in there is the contractors read into that we might be willing to spend that much. And they absolutely take this for 15 million. And so I want to make sure that it's kind of a two-edged sword here. But I'm in total agreement with Aaron, and Aaron, I don't know if I'd go up to 15 million, but because this project would be submarined if it came in that high. I don't think the school
absolutely
would even go for it either. So,
but theoretically, the project budget was 6.99 million from the project plan that was completed in 2019. What if we came in at 8.1 million and we set this at 8 million and now we're out of the queue? That would be a real shame, because the reality of it is this is one source of funding. The township may, supplement that, or you as a board may decide, we know our residents want this. Again, this doesn't obligate the township to spend this. This isn't the agreement with Huron Valley Schools or the agreement with DWRF. That's a separate agreement that we'll be bringing forward soon. But this is just the advertisement that we're going out to, sell bonds not to exceed whatever amount we set. I think we want to set that, at a level that we absolutely won't exceed in any way. Just knowing that this obligates us to do nothing, it just gets this hurdle off the table.
I think Mike's exactly right.
I was thinking 1.5 times maybe at max.
If you put 15 on there, they're going to go right. They're going to, the economy is moving really fast. The government moves really slow. And it's going to, it can, it's a tough thing out there right now. Demand is extreme and supply is really low, not to mention the people to do the work. So I don't even know if this is a realistic project, given the current climate that we're looking at.
Honestly, I don't either.
The only thing that can get worse is inflation, So maybe it comes back.
What I do know is that our customers demand that we do something about the iron every day.
Unless you showed them the numbers you're talking about, then I don't know if they're demanding much.
I think you have to give them credit. We have some pretty astute folks that, that live around here. Some of them, think I can just, real quick, just stick a filter in the pipe and it's somehow going to take out, thousands of pounds of iron a year. But most of them understand it. We've had pretty good support here. But you're right. We don't know if it's a realistic project until after the 24th, when we've got our bid opening. And, we expected to have some hurdles, and we did discuss that in the mandatory bid meeting. We did have 6 or 8 different contractors in each meeting for each phase of this project. I guess we'll know soon. I would just hate.
I'm gonna interject here. We've had a couple projects that we've looked at. One in particular that we just had that, we were fortunate enough that we did some conservative projections and it came back at a better number. So I'm not going to just assume that this is all going to hell in a handbasket. I'm comfortable going up to like $10 million on this, and I don't think that's an unrealistic number based on what I know of this. I do know things are changing. The labor rates haven't gone crazy yet. The materials are the difficult item here. Although there are now some of the manufacturing plants are now starting to come back online. There's things that are starting to happen. So I don't want to put this in, I don't want to jeopardize this project, but I don't want to overprice it either, because it's just something that we need to consider, that there is some changes and that we do need to move forward with it. So I'm going to recommend that we go to a 10 million on this. And if anyone else has a suggestion on the board, I would like to hear it. Mr. Powell.
I was thinking 12 million, quite frankly, because remember, this is just a bureaucratic checkbox
Yep.
that we're addressing here. Where the potential problem is, obviously, we're laying this out here. This is a document that can be FOIA'd, and so our contractors are going to have access to this. But in our discussion here, they're going to see that we're just identifying this as a bureaucratic checkbox, and we don't want to short circuit it. So I'd be comfortable at 12 million, but I'd leave that up to you guys as well.
Yeah. I wouldn't think that would be an unrealistic number. Mr. Noble.
I would recommend 12 million along with Trustee Powell. To Trustee Ruggles' point, it's very hard. I went out to fix with a well pump guy today. He was talking about just getting bladder tanks and materials. And it's not just the materials being made, it's the trucking, the laborers to unload everything right now. So I'd feel comfortable with 12 million because he's got a great point. Inflation, right on board on that. But I think 12 million is a good number to start with. I know Aaron spent a lot of time, and this has been a project before I came on the board to get this moving for the residents. So I'm in favor of the 12.
I'd just like to add that, like I said, we did have quite a few people attend our mandatory pre-bid meetings. There was a lot of discussion about this stuff. DWRF was also in that meeting. I think, well, this is an advertisement to the public that we're, going to be potentially selling a bond. An astute contractor may find this and decide to modify their bid, but they still want to win the project. So I don't think a good contractor is going to say, hey, they said that they're willing to spend up to 12, so we're going to set our bid at 11.9. They're going to lose the project. Rick was correct. I estimate based on the average unit price of all of our past projects when I'm estimating the cost of a project. As a conservative estimate method. On the North Bogey Lake SAD, we came in, much cheaper, so much cheaper, in fact, on the bids that we were able to go back and pay for that project through PA 188 rather than bonding it. So I'm not 100% convinced that folks are going to see this advertisement and decide to gouge us. But that's just my comment on that.
Very good. Okay, any other comments from the board members? If not, I'd like to entertain a motion and move forward. Mr. Powell.
Mr. Supervisor, I move that I move approval of the resolution authorizing the publication of notice of intent to issue the capital improvement bonds resolution 21021, subject to the modification of the principal aggregate amount not to exceed $12 million to finance the cost of the project.
I have a motion from Mr. Powell looking for support.
Support it.
Our support from Clerk Noble. Roll call vote, please.
Supervisor Colwell.
Yes.
Trustee Voorhees.
Yes.
Trustee Powell.
Yes.
Clerk Noble, yes. Trustee Smith.
Yes.
And Trustee Roman.
Ruggles?
I'm sorry, Ruggles. I'm losing it today.
It's all right.
Sorry, long day.
Was that a yes, Mr. Ruggles?
Yes.
Yes, he said yes, sir.
Very good. Thank you. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Going to old business, we have the second reading of the Stanford Holdings rezoning. Mr. O'Neill.
Yes, sir. So just to kind of reacquaint everyone from last month's meeting during first reading, this is a 10-acre strip of land that runs right along Cedar Island Road. If you can all see my screen, roughly in this area, there is a parcel on the corner that prevents it from going all the way to Bogey Lake Road, which is a piece of a 45-acre larger parcel here. So if you recall when we talked last, oh, that's not what I wanted to do. Okay. I'll try again. When we talked last month, we were going to ask the applicant, Mr. Thomasma, who's on tonight, if he would kind of reshuffle, and you don't normally get involved with land divisions, but here it is anyway. You can see that he's realigned the gap or the opening between the parcels to line up with Mayfair Drive, which if I flip back over here, I'm still not cooperating, is right here, directly south of the parcel. So he has agreed to reshuffle some of his, and let me go back to it again, just so you can see some of his lots. So that way the future road that would possibly carry traffic from the remaining 35-acre parcel will line up properly with Mayfair Drive, which is something that the road commission is going to want him to do anyway. So there's about 100-foot wide piece of that property that will come down and may contain a future road if that is to develop. So that's the only, plan change since you've seen it last. But again, you don't normally get into the weeds on land divisions, but I thought it was appropriate given the conversation we had last month. So tonight is second reading. So any action you take would, I should say an action to move ahead would be to approve second reading, which would effectively rezone this property. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. I think, again, Mr. Thomasma is here if you have any questions for him as well.
Mr. Powell?
Yes, I just briefly discussed it at the last meeting, first reading, that I certainly don't have any problem with this specific request, except that from a design perspective, he's going to need a set of internal roads to come into the rest of the development. If you look at all the other developments along Cedar Island Road, including, it's not Beacon Hill, it's Brentwood or whatever it is to the south there, that distance of 150 foot is exactly what the driveways are internal to the roads that they built for that particular project. We will be, if we approve this without some control, we're going to end up with a driveway every 150 feet all the way along here. And that's going to impact the drivability of Cedar Island Road there. And I'm just wondering if, Sean, if we wanted to, and certainly Mr. Thomasma and Brad Jr. or Brad can interject as well. I would really like to see, instead of a driveway off of Cedar Island Road, because quite frankly, we're handing them the ability to have how many splits there are we approving, Sean?
So, to answer your question, they're proposing 8. I spoke with the assessor this morning, and the Land Division Act may only allow 7. But okay, just to completely answer your question.
So that being said, if they could extend the road up in and have the driveways off of a road internal, that then sets them up for the next road internal for their the rest of their project. If we grant this rezoning without some kind of condition, and Sean, you may have an issue with this, then we're allowing them to take splits at no cost. Their access is no cost. They're going to pocket the entire profit from selling these at market value today as though they were inside a development. And so I would really like to discuss the possibility of the Thomasmas extending a road in and having the driveways for these splits off of an internal road instead of off of Cedar Island Road.
So, Mr. Powell, while I completely agree with you that that would be a better solution, I'm not aware of authority that exists with a simple rezoning, which would allow you to condition a rezoning that way. Perhaps Lisa is, but a simple rezoning, he shared with us his plan. It doesn't mean that he'll actually do this. And as I mentioned, he may get one less lot per discussion I had with Janine. So I think it would be more responsible from an access management standpoint. I think it would, certainly function a lot better. I completely agree. I just don't know how we do that. It's just a simple rezoning request. And, you've designed a lot of developments and you know a lot about this, and that's why I think you're looking at it this way. So, and you're correct in doing so. I don't know where this really leaves us. I don't know that we can do this.
Counselor,
Question.
I would ask, go ahead, Mr. Ruggles, go ahead.
I would just, Sean, he doesn't have to provide the township board with his proposed plan just for rezoning, right? He just did that out of a courtesy. I mean, anybody could split off a piece and ask for a rezoning, right?
So we do ask for a concept plan as a part of the application, but it's quite clear that they're not bound to that. It's not a conditional rezoning. There's nothing that ties him to any particular layout, or if this were a commercial property, any particular end product. So you're correct.
Just so the whole township board's on the same page. I don't disagree with you, Mr. Powell, but just so we all understand that with just a simple rezoning and then the number of splits that he's entitled to, then he's able to do what he would like to do with that property once he gets the rezoning, correct? Regardless of this township's board's wishes.
Certainly, and Sean is absolutely correct, and Scott, you're correct. I guess the only way to think about it is that without the rezoning, we could say, you know what, we'd like to study the master plan for this whole corner and look at it as a planned development area instead of a lot split development area. And so we could certainly ask him to provide us with a master plan for the development of this whole area before we anticipate and think about any rezoning. And so it might be best that we rezone this for 75 lots or 75 units. And so I'm kind of just thinking that that we could do that and offer that to them.
Another way of looking at this, and I may have mentioned it when we talked about it a month ago, we've looked at some conceptual plans. Some of them had a density that would have yielded lots somewhere in the 90s, close to 100 units. So when they take 10 acres and they want to build, let's say 7 or 8 homes on 10 acres, when you're considering some of the concerns of the surrounding neighbors with regard to density and traffic impact, in a way, I agree with you with these 7 or 8 lots, but the density is so low with these that in a way, in effect, it will limit their ability to have much density. I mean, they'll never get near the number that they could have potentially gotten had they brought a whole PD in. So that's maybe but another way of looking at it more positively. So there'll be maybe 7 or 8 driveways out there, but there'll maybe be 7 or 8 homes on this 10 acres instead of 25 homes if they were to be dumped into, granted they might be coming out at one point across from Mayfair instead of having individual driveways. So, I mean, it does limit their ability to have a great deal, a number of homes that would approach 100 by taking such a chunk off of the one side with such low density. The other thing I'll say is perhaps we can, ask him, and again, we're not maybe in a position to require that he look at doing some shared driveways. I mean, that would certainly be a cost savings, at least where the two adjacent properties may connect to the main road. You could cluster a couple mailboxes together. The post office would probably love that. They can plow one entry back, the first 30 or 40 feet and then Y off to their individual homes instead of having a long driveway for each house. I mean, I don't know if he's building these houses and that'd be something he'd consider looking at. I know I spoke with him about including sidewalks in his plans as well, and he's still, considering that. And he and I talked just yesterday about that too. So, maybe we can ask him to weigh in on this a bit.
Please do.
Yes. This is Tom. I'm having trouble with my video. Audio wise, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Okay. There we go. Yeah, I would consider shared driveways that would have to be studied. I'm not opposed to it. I don't know what the road commission would say about that. And I may be missing some other government agencies that prohibit it. But I would be open to study that and look at it.
Mr. O'Neill? I don't really have anything further other than to just, again, summarize that I agree with Mr. Powell. I think it would function well. We actually have some homes at front on, I think it's Cooley Lake Road.
Yes, we do.
Just west of Bogey Lake Road that have a similar, exactly what he's talking about, have a similar kind of parallel access drive. And it, probably functions still pretty well, but it's unfortunately, I'm not aware of a mechanism that we have that would allow us to require that as a part of a rezoning. That's all.
I agree with you, and we don't have that within our means, Mr. Powell, to do that. So, but I think the power of suggestion, also Mr. Thompson will want to build a product that people will want. And all he has to do is, if he's not familiar with that particular parcel, or excuse me, that particular little development, it's on the north side of Cooley Lake Road, just west of Bogey Lake Road. And it's actually a nice little setup because you come in one driveway and all those homes are in there. And I think it puts the homes in a little bit of a different category. Gives them some exclusivity and some privacy that I think people would appreciate. And whether that road would come out into the proposed drive that you would have going into the internal facility and just run as a ribbon across the front. I'm sure that if you sat with your engineer, you come up with something and be creative and in turn create a unique product that people be attracted to. So any other questions from the board at this time? Mr. Ruggles?
Yeah, Tom, I don't know what your plans are with the rest of the acreage, but did anything that Mr. Powell said, interest you and possibly helping with the rest of the development?
Well, the rest of the development is something that'll come later, but certainly its highest and best use would probably be something more dense and innovative for housing. I agree with that.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, I'd like to entertain yes, Trustee Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. So I listened carefully and I understand that we can't require it, but just to continue after Trustee Ruggles. So would you be interested in an interior street at all and not just conjoining driveways, but would you be interested in exploring that request?
No, I would not. That would be a private road, and we're getting into development now as opposed to simple splits.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Starts to change things a little bit, the dynamics. Okay, any other questions or comments from the board? Okay, with this, I'd like to entertain a motion from someone. A motion. You always want motions. Here's a motion. Okay. I make a motion then at this point in time to move the project for Stanford Holdings LLC rezoning to adoption.
I'll second that.
I have motion, I have support. Roll call vote, please.
Supervisor Kowal,
Yes.
Trustee Ruggles,
Yes.
Trustee Powell.
I want to state for the record that the both Tom and Bradley are first-rate developers and very, very good. And I know that they have the best interest of the township at heart, and I'll vote yes.
Trustee Voorhees,
Yes.
trustee Smith,
Yes.
clerk Noble, yes.
Motion carries. Thank you. Okay. Next item on our list is something that it's pretty cool. And I would like to, at this time, like to do a presentation for Mr. Ron Voorhees. Mr. Ron Voorhees just recently passed and is kind of a legend around here, around these here parts, as they say. So I have something here that I'm going to bear with me just a moment here, folks. It was a long walk to Andrea's house. Okay. All right. So this is a special tribute. Let it be known, it is with great sorrow that White Lake Township acknowledges the passing of Ronald Claire Voorhees on June 2nd, 2021. Our deepest sympathies go to his wife, Mary, his daughters, Andrea, Valerie, and Leslie, and the rest of his family. Born on May 7th, 1930, Mr. Voorhees lived a long, rich life and was dedicated to public service. His White Lake Township service totaled an incredible 48 years. I think that's a record. I don't think anybody else holds a candle to that one. Mr. Voorhees served as treasurer from 1956 to 1992 and then served as a White Lake trustee from 1992 to 2004. Mr. Voorhees was also very active in the community with organizations such as Meals on Wheels, the 4-H Club, the White Lake Presbyterian Church, and the White Lake Historical Society, to name a few. It is with great respect for his past successful career and volunteerism that we will always remember Ron and his unwavering commitment to public service. However, today we reserve and admire him for his most significant role. That is a husband, father, brother, and grandfather, a true family man. On behalf of White Lake Township Board of Trustees and the grateful citizens of the extraordinary community, we thank Mr. Ron Voorhees and his family for his indelible service. A special tribute, therefore, this document is signed and dedicated to the memory of Ronald Claire Voorhees. May he rest in eternal peace. And it's signed by myself, Clerk Noble, and Treasurer Roman. And it's even got a tractor down here. There's Ron right there riding the tractor. Okay, so there you go, Andrea. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
To your dad and your family, and the best. And I hate to tell you this, but I'm going to let you start out with trustee comments.
I know, okay. Thank you, Rick. Supervisor Kowal. I asked, with the support of my husband and his idea, he said, Andrea, go up into the township board, sit in his spot where he was when he retired in 2004, in which I am. This is my wonderful dad, and I'm even wearing his township jacket that I got from a couple years ago because he loved White Lake. I only wrote a few notes because I'm not gonna make it very far. But May 7th, 1930 to June 2nd, 2021, and it's not the beginning and the end that counts. It's what's in the middle that really counts. He was, as Rick said, 36 years as township treasurer, 12 years as White Lake Township trustee, 59 years married to my mom, dad for 57 years, and 1 year as MTA, Michigan Township Association president. He was 91 years of being a proud White Laker. He never stopped asking me about White Lake until a few months ago. That's how much he loved White Lake, even to the end. Thank you.
That's a tough act to follow, Andrea, I'll tell you. He was a great guy.
Supervisor Koa.
Yes, Mr. Noble.
Could we take a moment of silence after that in respect
Absolutely.
for Mr. Voorhees, treasurer
Yes, thank you.
Voorhees, just for a moment, please? Thank you. Thank you.
Thank all of you, and we're very fortunate to have him in our midst. Mr. Powell.
Thank you, and you're right, that is a tough act to follow. I remember as a kid going in with my dad and talking to Ron and Jim Reed and Ferd Vetter and all those guys, and I can't even believe I'm old enough to remember that, but I really admired Ron very, very much. And I'll tell you one thing that impressed me as well, in that the testimony of all of those at his funeral, if you believe in the Bible at all, he is without a doubt in heaven waiting for us all. So, and I really respect that and believe that. So to move on to another subject, I couldn't help but notice that the police and the fire reports that we had in consent agenda there, the police department had 2,028 calls in the month of May. That is 65 calls per day. And they actually responded and dispatched 1,042 or 33 dispatched runs per day. Amazing that our department can do that. And so the other thing that really caught my eye, and I really respect the department for this, and I really hold out Dan as the chief, that 398 warnings were given to traffic violations, and 389 tickets were handed out. So they are very even-handed on warnings and telling people to slow down, as opposed to just giving everyone tickets. And I really respect that. The fire department handled 249 calls for service, or 10 calls per day for the fire department. And that's just remarkable numbers for our staff and our departments here in White Lake Township. And I speak, I'm sure, for all the people in White Lake, that we really respect and admire and thank our police and fire departments. As an example, one of my staff totaled my personal car today out on M59, and she was all right. But I'll tell you what, the respect that that officer gave her and gave me was just absolutely professional in every way. And so I thank the police department here in White Lake Township. I echo the comment from the public today, the member of the Twin Lakes subdivision there, that if White Lake Township can help the subdivisions more, that'd be fantastic. If that project had gone through the road commission, the cost would have doubled. And so we saved our residents a great deal of money by handling that in-house. So I want to thank the rest of the board for that. And thank you, Mr. Supervisor.
Thank you, Mr. Powell. Trustee Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. So not only are Andrew and I colleagues, but we've been blessed to be friends, personal friends, and I want to give my most sincere and deep condolences to you. Our families go so far back. Our grandpas were friends. Our dads served in government together at the same time. My mom was a municipal treasurer at the same time as your dad, and they enjoyed time together. So we have so much history together, and I truly care about you and your dad. And I want to thank everybody that showed their respect and attendance in attending Ron's funeral. One thing that was really just very heartfelt was to go past his tractor one more time in the funeral procession. And I want to thank those neighbors that were so kind to put their tractors out as well in honor of your dad. I just thought that was very touching. Your dad was truly an incredible man. And as Trustee Pell and I sat together at the funeral and talked, and we are of the same faith, we know that he was welcomed home with "Well done, good and faithful servant." So I hope you find peace and comfort in that. Then I'll continue on with a quick library update. All residents have received your quarterly library newsletter, and they're almost completely back into service. So I just want to go over quickly the bullet points as they're trying to let our community know what services are available. Inside browsing is now available, virtual take home, and some outdoor programs are available. Computers are now available without an appointment. Their regular hours are back, 24/7 Wi-Fi is available. Masks are required unless you have been fully vaccinated or have a health exemption. This is a CDC requirement that they're following at this time. Curbside delivery continues for all customers, including those customers who cannot or prefer not to wear a mask. And meeting rooms and study rooms are not available due to social distancing at this time. The Friends of the Library has their first book sale coming back, which is also in the newsletter if you received it. It's on the website. And those dates are Thursday, June 17th from 3 to 7, Friday, June 18th from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., and Saturday, June 19th. And then the last thing I just wanted to touch on, and not all residents got it, and I just so enjoyed reading this in the Historical Society Gazette. They had a wonderful blurb about Chief Holland, and I think it deserves to be read because I personally enjoyed it. So Chief Holland has been so loyal to our community. He is currently the longest running employee in White Lake Township. He has been fire marshal since 2014 and was promoted to deputy chief in September of 2020. He joined the White Lake Fire Department in 1985 and was paid on-call firefighter. He became a career member in 1994. He was one of the first paramedics in the history of White Lake Department. Prior to coming to White Lake, he worked as an EMT on the ambulance in the city of Detroit. He's a firefighter 1 and 2, state licensed paramedic, a certified hazardous material technician, and is trained in all disciplines of technical rescue. Additionally, he previously served on the Oakland County Technical Rescue Team as a FEMA medical specialist, as well as paramedic with the Oakland County Sheriff Office and White Lake Township Fire Department Special Response Teams. He's certified fire inspector and accredited fire investigator. He's completed the arson crime scene investigation school at the FBI Academy. He has served as an instructor for the White Lake Township Citizens Academy, as he's also served as a previous instructor with the Oakland Community College of Firefighter Academy and interim chief. So I was so impressed by that, and I just wanted to share that with all our residents to just once again congratulate Chief Holland and how very lucky we are to have such a credentialed chief. So that will conclude. One more last thing. Congratulations to all the graduates and all those students and moms and dads that survived this year. You definitely deserve a round of applause. It was hard, and congratulations to our high school graduates, and congratulations to all students and parents that got through this tough year. So have a fun summer, and God bless. Thank you.
Mr. Ruggles.
Yeah, thanks. Andrea, I'm so sorry. And your mom, Mary, I hope she's doing well, but she's a tough woman. I think she's gonna do great. I've known Ron since, geez, my family used to have beef cattle over there, and we didn't call it Ron's, we just call it Voorhees. We're going over to Voorhees. So we go over there and feed the cows and whatever, fill the water tanks. We've been growing stuff there ever since. So I've known Ron a long time. And a secret Andrea keeps from everyone, I plant Ron's garden. So
Not a secret, we all know.
And no matter what the time of day, I'd get over there and it's getting dark. Maybe it's 10 o'clock. He'd come out every time. He'd come out in pajamas. He'd come out and talk. We'd talk about whatever, talk about the weather, talk about corn. He'd show me where to start, where to finish, just how to do it. So I'll always remember that. And whenever we'd harvest, he'd come, he'd ride, right? He'd ride in the combine, he'd ride in this, whatever. And I think he enjoyed the ride as much as he enjoyed the company. Probably the ride more, But yep. So I really, really sad, Andrea, but he's a great man.
Mhm.
I know my family will miss him.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Noble.
Andrea, once again, I want to give my condolences to you and your family. 91 years is not enough in my book. And when we were going over some of the history about your dad's biography, one of the things that I found very neat is he used to walk up to the bank over by Alpine. And it just shows the example when, township didn't have any money, but a true public service and dedicated human being, not only to the township, but as a family man too. And I think listening at the funeral, there were some more truer words that were spoken by your dad. So I concur with Trustee Powell and everybody else that there's no doubt that he's up above looking down at us in heaven. And also this week, I just wanted to come across with the White Lake Police Department, Officer Boaz. We've had a rash of larcenies taking place, which is a organized crew. They went around and they stole multiple air conditioning units in our new construction. Officer Boaz had found a door ajar on the lower level of Four Corners. Found the first one, went through and secured all of the multiple doors. By doing so, he prevented multiple larcenies that would have taken place and probably nobody would have seen due to it being at night. And so I just want to commend him and Chief Keller under their leadership for that. It's not writing tickets, it's finding stuff on patrol. And that's what counts. It prevents the crimes. And as we're in a sad time with, murders are up 33% nationally in big cities. So I commend all the police and also the fire for their dedicated service. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Well, it's, folks, just in case you know, I had a request earlier this afternoon, actually later in the day, that the library is going to be having their inoculation clinic tomorrow between 11 a.m. and 6 p.m. Walk-ins first dose, the second dose will be available. You can get more information, go to oak.gov or call 800-848-5533. And so that's something that's going on in our community, and I'll try to get that out on Facebook tomorrow. So some of the folks out here, there's interesting thing on the news tonight. I caught a glimpse of it where it's about 400,000 doses of variety of COVID vaccines that are going to potentially expire within the next 30 days. And Detroit is like struggling trying to give them out in our metropolitan area. So our good friends over in Windsor are asking for them. And unfortunately, as the bureaucracy goes, the CDC will not allow them to be taken over there, which I think is totally terrible because I have Canadian relatives and we have some of them have had their inoculation and it may be up to 4 to 5 months before they get their second shot, and some don't even have it. So I'm certainly hoping that some people will have a little more wisdom and not let these precious medications go to waste. We all went through our audit. I'm very pleased to say that everyone on our staff has done an exemplary job in trying to watch their P's and Q's and their dollars and cents. And we are very careful with our money and we watch what we do with it. And the proof is in the pudding. So all you have to do is look at where we're at and what we've done and where we've come. So that is great. WOTA is moving forward. Just to let you know, we've ordered 4 new vehicles through Zott Automotive Group that will outfit us and help us meet the demands that are growing in our communities that we're serving. We have a few vehicles that we have right now that the lifts for the folks that are wheelchair bound are not working properly. And some of the manufacturers of those lifts don't even have parts available anymore. Imagine that. So we're moving forward with that. So it's one of the interesting things that I found on this job that I really like is to see the needs of people. And Mr. Noble has been out there in the public and he passes some things on to me and I pass them on to the communities that need to be need to be aware of what we're doing and also try to join us so that we can all succeed at this. Andrea, Dad was a great guy. I really enjoyed being around him. I know my dad got a kick out of him being a little tractor guy. And they would start talking tractor and whatever farm because of my father's growing up on a Western Canadian farm. It was always interesting. So I'm going to leave you with this. Purpose. We all serve one. Some serve more than others. His legacy will be the implications that he made to us for all of us to have a purpose and a sense of community. Perhaps Ron's lifetime will be a great example to all of the younger people that walk this planet, this earth, this township, that don't have a total sense of purpose. With that, I say good night, God bless, and a motion to adjourn.
Motion
Looking
to
for
adjourn.
support.
Support.
I have a motion to adjourn from Andrea, looking for support. I got support from Mr.
Support.
Powell. Oh, I think Mr. Powell has his hand up first.
Sure, no
Okay,
problem.
that's okay. Okay, roll call vote, Mr. Noble.
Trustee Smith,
Yes.
Supervisor Colwell,
Yes.
Clerk Noble, yes. Trustee Ruggles,
Yes.
Trustee Powell,
Yes.
Trustee Voorhees.
Yes.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.